Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Debbie Eno from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of Home Education, Homeschooling, depending on which country you are in. And welcome, Kelly. Thank you so very much for accepting the offer to come onto the program to share your journey with us as to why you became a homeschooler, why you decided to ditch the traditional education, and what are the challenges that you've had, etc. Thank you very much for coming on. As I said, please introduce yourself. Tell us what part of the world you're from and tell us about your journey.
Sure. Well, yeah, so my name's Kelly, founder of Off Roading Motherhood as well. I'm from Surrey, so just south of London in England. And yeah, I've basically been home educating my kids for about 3 years, give or take. My son never went to school, so he didn't go into reception when he reached reception age. We decided to keep him home. It was the weirdest thing ever, rejecting the school offer and just being like, no, actually, we're not going to do it. Because quite literally, I'm talking 6 months before he would have started school, we were still on the fence. We didn't know if we were going to home educate or not. We'd only even just literally found out about it being an option maybe a year before that, 6 months to a year before that. So I'd done an awful lot of research and an awful lot of digging and thinking. And it had obviously reached a point where we decided that it was something which we were going to give a go at. But it was a big decision, very big decision.
Wow. The fact that he was given a place and you rejected it.
Yeah.
So how did you feel rejecting it? What was the emotion?
God, it was just weird. It was just like this real rebellious. I felt so rebellious because I'd been basically one of the biggest things I've been healing from myself over the past few years is the good girlism. So I was raised a good girl. You did as you're told, like you don't rock the boat, you go with the flow, you follow societal rules, you don't mess about. I married a police officer, for crying out loud.
So I literally was follow the rule all the way through.
Yeah, well on the railroad. Like I was doing as I was told. Like I got married, I had my house, I had my kids, like just doing everything so-called right, however that's supposed to look. And then I was like, yeah, no, actually, I don't think I believe in any of this anymore. And I think I'm going to home educate my kids. And it was just, I was really scared. I actually spent an awful lot of time dealing with quite a lot of conflict that actually came from me making that decision because I had been such a good girl and everybody wasn't expecting it from me.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The big girl, good girl, turned rebellious girl. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine?
I must have always secretly been rebellious, I suppose, deep down.
Exactly. But have never been allowed to express it.
No, definitely not. That's probably the overarching thing, really, isn't it? Is the feeling of actually a lot of what's happening in the school system and in society. It's not just the school, it's the world we're living in, the Western world, and the expectations that are placed upon us as people is that we are supposed to be fitting inside the box. And if we don't fit, and let's face it, the box isn't even fully defined. Exactly. So it's not even actual possibility, it's an impossibility. It's actually different from one person to the next as to what their expectations of the box looks like. Exactly. So we're basically, you're just constantly trying to shape yourself to whatever other people need you to be, and that's exhausting. It's not a way to live a life, is it?
Exactly. So were you frightened in terms of, you rebel and, so what were your wider family saying to you?
My initial family reactions weren't brilliant, and I won't get into it in too much specifics, obviously, to protect them. But they were really scared for me. I'd had some mental health problems having the kids. At the time, I was undiagnosed ADHD and likely autistic as well. I haven't had my autism diagnosis, but I have had my ADHD one. So I had gone through postnatal depression both times having my kids. I was really struggling with the change to my routine and the change to having young children because they're chaotic. They're like tornadoes.
Beautiful tornadoes.
They just, yeah. And I think quite often as well, I think this is one of the reasons why people may really hesitate in terms of home education is if they have struggled in the younger years, because it's a massive shift and a massive change for people. to go from not having kids to having kids. And those early years are tough. They are a baptism of fire. And especially if you have got undiagnosed neurodiversity or have struggled with your mental health, the choice then to go on and home educate can feel really like, no, God, I need to put them somewhere. They need to go somewhere a few days a week. But actually, obviously, we'll talk about it later, the reason why that wasn't going to work for us. But yeah, so some of my family were horrified. Some were really concerned that I wasn't going to be able to cope. And I ended up having a conversation with them that said, like, there was once upon a time when you would have said to me that you can do anything that you can possibly dream, that you can go anywhere, you can be an astronaut, you can climb a mountain, like you can do whatever you want. I said, when did you stop believing that was true? It's like, at the time I was 31 years old. I'm just like, are you seriously saying to me at 31 years old that I've reached the pinnacle of my ambition? I'm not allowed to try and go any higher. I can't try and do anything else. And that thankfully really shifted some mindsets and helped them understand that, sure, okay, I wasn't picking the easy road for me. School isn't necessarily the easy road for a lot of people. But the school option would have almost been seen as, by them, as the easy road, would have given me more time, would have allowed me to work more maybe. But we all know that that's not necessarily true. With illnesses and school holidays and the fact that the mother tends to be the default parent. And so, yeah, I wasn't really convinced. And obviously my youngest is only 4 now. So she still would have been home half the week too. So actually I still wouldn't have really had any more time to work or to do anything else until this point anyway. So wouldn't have made any difference. But yeah, it was really tricky at first, trying to overcome those initial concerns. And obviously it was out of the blue because I'd only recently figured it out myself that that's what we wanted to do. That's what we wanted to try. Hadn't fully formed the idea yet. We didn't even know what it would look like for us. We just wanted to try and just figure it out. So for most people, it was really shocking. It's just like completely out of the blue.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing the aspect of, your challenges you've had. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for sharing that. It's interesting, though, because what always happens is people tend to project their anxiety onto us.
Yes.
It's not our anxiety, it's their anxiety and uncertainty, but they project it onto us. So sometimes we unconsciously take on those baggages ourselves, and we then begin to feel fearful and not realizing why we're beginning to feel fearful. Although initially we were good, we were good, So it's
You're also dealing with the fact that they themselves chose to parent how they chose to parent. They had access to the level of information they had access to. They had the people giving them advice that they had given them advice, this whole circle of influence thing. But you have to then reflect on the fact that actually you sitting there and saying, essentially, no, I don't want to send them to school, I want to do it this way, means that you're saying that you disagree with the fact that they sent you to school. And that's not necessarily true, but that's how it can be perceived. And it can be almost a defensive reaction as well. And we have to, as you say, just remembering not to take that on board. But unfortunately, back when that was the case for me, when that was all happening, I hadn't yet gone through my self-growth journey. I hadn't really shed a lot of that judgment, like dealing with people's judgment, wanting to please other people. So it was quite hard for me at the time to still be like, no, I believe this. I know I'm going to do it. It's going to be fine. Like I had to really push through it. And that was really, really hard. And now I obviously can reflect back on it with compassion for them and for myself, and how tricky that was. And obviously I completely understand how much that must really stress out parents still. I know it does. I talk to them about it all the time, that overcoming that is really hard.
Thank you. What was also powerful for you, your husband was very supportive. So therefore, it doesn't matter what the outside world was saying, you had your support network there. Which was really a bit
convincing, but he got there in the end.
Exactly. They usually do, because they're also so fearful. What do you think you're doing? This is not normal. Most people send the children
what are you talking about? People don't do this. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
But thankfully he's very open. So he's always ready to receive and to listen and to understand. And he actually does take things on board. So you can't ask for any more than that, really.
Because it was a learning journey. It was, the fact that he was willing to listen to see, okay, let's see how this works.
Yeah, he just heard me out. And obviously I was doing tons of research and trying to get my head around everything. And I was willing to then spend the time helping him to understand.
Thank you. Were there any obstacles and barriers that you faced? Yes, we just went through them, the whole shebang of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you definitely have that. You have the fact that it's very difficult to find statistics. So any statistics that you will find typically are from America, because it's so much more prevalent there.
Yeah.
So finding statistics about how home educated kids went on to do in terms of GCSEs or universities or future careers, it was quite difficult to get your hands on. So a lot of the early challenges is actually the fact that there's not a lot of information initially when you're first looking, because you don't know where to look, you don't know who to talk to. You can find it once you understand where you're going, but it takes a bit of time. I think another challenge can definitely be the fact that you're I've lost my train of thought. Literally just gone.
That's okay.
Brain does that. But yeah, I mean, there are challenges that come up. You do get things that come in your way that just make you feel a bit uncertain, and so you've got to have just that spark of conviction. And this is why I always try to say to people, you don't have to have it all figured out. Nobody ever has it all figured out. They never actually figure it all out. Doesn't matter how many years of parenting they do. Right, you need to just have a spark. You just have to have that little spark of determination. And the rest will follow.
Yeah.
And so it's just fear, I think, a lot of the time in the early stages, especially for me. I was just scared that I was going to fail them, that I was doing something really stupid. And it's so nice to be a couple of years in and to know that's really not the case, but it just takes that initial spark.
Thank you. It's like anything that we do in life, there are always an element of fear because it is something new, and then we are facing uncertainty. So it's like, how successful it you have this little nagging voice in your head saying, I don't understand what you're doing. Oh, you're gonna fail. But you have to just quash that noise in your head and say, I am going to do it. I'm going to show you. So it's like the I'm going to show you is the spark on all the time. Because it is so easy for this little thing to say to you, oh, you're making a mistake, and it becomes big.
Yes.
And then you have someone from outside trying to say to you, you sure you know what you're doing? And the little voice is getting louder. You see, I told you.
And that's the thing, people are so ready to chuck that in your way. I just remember what the other thing was. It was the myths. So the myths are ingrained somehow. We all have the same set of beliefs around home education. And so you can really fall into the trap of believing they're real and that you are going to have to work really hard to overcome them. Things like socialization and whether or not they'll ever actually learn to read and all that nonsense. And actually it's when you can get stuck in those fears and you just believe they're true, you're scuppered.
Thank you. It's interesting with that aspect though, because too often people seeing the education system is not working, but I still believe it because it's an institution.
Yeah. It's just what you do.
Yeah.
It's a very British thing to just go along with. It's just what you do. You don't go against the grain. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just go with the flow. You just have to stick with the crowd. Like we're British, we stick together, we do what we're supposed to do. Like we're just, it's a very, and also it's a very political subject. It's something that people feel very passionately about. And in the Western society we live in, we're very excellence mindset focused. So we're very goal and outcome academia focused, and that in itself isn't entirely a bad thing. Like it's great that people are smart and they're given an opportunity to develop interests and have that access to education. It's fantastic, But what it can also do is when we prioritize excellence, we essentially diminish the value in those that are not able to be excellent, like professors, doctors, lawyers. Essentially, to believe in excellence mindset, we have to also believe that if our children don't become academically excellent, that they have no value. And I fundamentally believe that that is wrong, that as humans, we don't deserve to place any value on how clever this is above somebody else. Because cleverness is completely different from one person to the next. Abilities, some people are incredibly creative, some people write songs, some people make movies, some people will be fantastic accountants, will manage money for massive firms. Like, everybody is very different, and if we don't have differences, then we don't have the human race. We need that variety to be able to achieve food, agriculture, shops, roads being made, cars being designed. Like, we need variety. But when we teach our kids that the only value is in excellence of academic subjects, we are diminishing value in jobs that are essential, pay great money, are really fun, are really interesting, are totally meeting that person's needs and actually making them have a really great life, where they get just the right amount of peopling, the right amount of focus in their day, the flexible hours, like whatever it is that makes their life feel good. We're telling them that it's not good enough unless it pays a certain amount, or people go, oh yeah, that's a great job when you talk to them. Like, if people are ashamed of their jobs, and it's sad. Like, we shouldn't have that hierarchy. That shouldn't exist. People are smart and useful and valuable in all of their states, even as children, as they are right now, 2 years old, being a tornado. They have a value in our society. They have a reason to exist and to be there, and we don't allow that. The goal of a 2-year-old is to become a 3-year-old.
Thank you. This is so, what you've said just now is so powerful. It really made me think, and it is so very true.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why when I was talking to you earlier on, I keep on saying to my student every day, especially this last week when we came back after half term, that I don't want robots.
No.
I want individuals who are critical thinkers, because you've got something beautiful between your ear, which is called your brains. And I want you to use it and use it well. And when I first said that to the group on Monday, just sat there and looked at me.
Like, what
I said,
do
why
you
are you
mean?
guys looking at me like this? Exactly. I said, you guys have to be creative thinker. And I said, I don't want no competing. You're all unique individuals. So stop saying that this one is doing this. It doesn't matter.
No.
We all are different people, and we all unique at it.
But then this comparison, this thing that children obviously internalize over time, and we take into our adulthood, where we do compare ourselves constantly to everybody else in terms of our weight, our height, our eye color, our looks, our marriage, our whatever, right? We compare everything to everybody else, and we worry about it relentlessly. That starts in places like primary school, where children are issued pen licenses because their handwriting has gotten good enough that they're now allowed a pen. I mean, seriously, like, it's great for the kid who gets it first. Congratulations, you get to sit there going, oh, look at me, my handwriting is perfectly neat. It doesn't matter that I'm 9 months older than you, or that my parents sit me down and make me do it 5 hours every night. It's an immediate disparity. The person who's sitting there going, but my letters are barely legible and I can't do it. Like, my hands don't physically work like that yet. And I'm trying, but I can't do it. But I'm worse than them instantly. And the more we do that, the more we compare with grades, with tests, with spelling tests every week, with all of the things. That person's reading at level 2, I'm reading at level 1. We're in the same class. Why am I not reading as high as them? What's wrong with me? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing. But they don't know that, and they're too young. And as I always say to some, like, children are an empty vessel, that not entirely empty. Obviously, they have their instincts, they have their abilities, but they are sucking in beliefs, and they're sucking in the realities of their world by osmosis. It's just pouring in. And so all the while they're doing that, they're believing they're not good enough, that they're not comparable to that person. And it doesn't, as I say, all the things, all the environmental reasons, all the things that are going on there that actually could mean that they are exactly as good as that person and will be in 6 months' time when they've caught up with the age or they've whatever, right? They can't see it. And it eats away at them. And this is why home education isn't the only solution to this. Great teachers are, great systems where people fight it and try not to let this happen too much in their classrooms. Parents at home reassuring their kids, constantly talking to them about how brilliant they are. We are doing the work. Everyone who does that is doing the work. But anyone who is sitting there going, well, your brother's already reading at level 4. Why are you only reading at level 2? You're a year older than him. It just adds to it, but this isn't their fault. We're all conditioned to compare. We're conditioned to worry about that. We're conditioned to go, you need to be better than. You're older, so you must be better. All that nonsense. It's just not true.
It's the conditioning, isn't it? It's interesting because I remember saying to my son, my 17-year-old, I said to, can't remember years ago, I can't remember what was it. I said to him, what's wrong with you? Something he did. I said, what's wrong? He said, Mom, there's nothing wrong with me. I said to him, you know what? I had to think because that was a punch. I said to him, you are so right. There is nothing wrong with you.
No.
I said, but why did you do what you've just done? So I had to rephrase. And this is
I'm not sitting here being high and mighty either, right? Because I definitely said something along those lines to my son. He's like, what is going on in your brain? Like, why to me? Like, why are you doing this? And I mean, he's ADHD, he's likely autistic, he has got therefore some developmental delays. He's also 6.
Exactly.
He's 6 years old. But
exactly.
the conditioning that I've had, my good girlisms, my perception of me as a child is obviously skewed. I don't remember myself at 6. I don't remember how I showed up, how I behaved. I don't know how much criticism I got, how often I got told to be quiet, how often I got told I was chaos. I don't know. I'm assuming a lot by how much I have a hang up about it now. But I don't know. I can't remember. So this is where we just have to notice. And as long as we're noticing and going, wait, that wasn't very nice. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. This is what I actually am having trouble with right now. I am feeling X, Y, Z. How do you feel about this? Why is this not a priority for you or whatever? Finding ways to communicate and to apologize. And I mean, most of us in adult generations now don't really remember adults apologizing to us all that much. It was kind of just supposed to suck it up. Injustice was just part of the package of being a child. It
is so, what you say is so true, because even in schools, if a teacher apologizes to students, they're looking at you and thinking, and I was saying to them, what's the problem? I say, I've just messed up. I'm putting my hand up, I've just messed up. And they stand there, or they sit there looking at me. And I say to them, okay, it's like the shock on their face, right? When I apologize because I mess up. And they're looking at me and thinking, Miss? I say, yes. I said, I just messed up. Sorry, I just messed up. That's it. And it's interesting because adults don't see the need to apologize to younger people. What they fail to realize is when you don't apologize, it becomes a bigger issue.
Because then not only have you done something that was unjust, unkind, not role modeling how to be a good person, you've hurt them, you've damaged your connection, it diminishes trust, and it separates you. It makes you two separate people. Like, as a parent, if a child trusts that if you mess up and they can say, what you said earlier really hurt my feelings, or you obviously notice what you've done immediately and just say, wow, that was horrible. I don't know where that came from. I'm really sorry. And kind of give them an understanding of where you're coming from or why your day has been a bit tricky, or maybe why you're worried about something and why you're distracted, why something's irritating you right now, whatever. You give them an opportunity to see you as a real human, to see how a real human actually deals with difficult days, deals with difficult emotions. And I mean, so often now in our culture, if a marriage isn't working, we just give up on it and we walk away because we just see it as an immediate, like, if someone's hurt you, you don't bother talking to them anymore, you just walk away. And it's like, okay, in some situations, sure, but actually a lot of the time people say things when they're upset, they say things when they're angry, fed up, frustrated, having a really hard time, worried about money. We do things and say things that we're not proud of, and actually role modeling to them how to then cope in those difficult situations when they say something, they didn't mean it and they've messed up and they've said something to a friend or whatever that they really regret. Having that humility and having that ability to go back and say, hey, do you know what, I made a mistake. I really shouldn't have spoken to you like that, and I'm really like hurting that I said that to you. Like, that was so harsh and it was so unnecessary. I really didn't mean it. Like, I don't know, I just think that we have a prejudice obviously towards children anyway. We do have this kind of feeling like we're better than them, or that, as I say, like the whole value thing, that we are more valuable. Our feelings, our needs, our thoughts, our abilities, our knowledge matters more and is higher than theirs. And in some ways, I guess, like factually, sure, I know more than they do in some ways, but respecting them as an equal and giving them equal respect as a human being, one day they are going to be grown-ups. And I hope to God that they remember that I've always treated them as an equal, because that equality is going to continue up, right? That should continue up. And it's like, it should never go anywhere. And I don't want them to separate from me. I don't want them to see me as a separate entity, to be a different age, to be a different person. I want them to be connected with me. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I feel like
that is so powerful though, because too often the children are seen as not able to offer you anything. Something I say to my students, and it's like they look at me as if I'm going mad. I say, thank you so much. You guys are my teacher as much as I'm your teacher. Miss, what do you mean you're the teacher? I say, I am the teacher, yes, but I learn a lot from you guys. I say, you need to realize that there are a lot of things you are teaching me from which I'm really grateful. So I need to demonstrate my gratitude, because I don't know everything. It's like today I'm saying to them, I said, look, this laptop and this whiteboard, they're not talking and it's irritating me. I said, I need some assistance here, right?
Does anybody good with computers? Come and solve
exactly. And it's like, one of them got to us, she said, Miss, I don't even know what I'm doing. I said, okay, keep on practicing.
Yeah. We'll figure it out together and it'll be fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the end, you know, I don't know what happened, but we figure it out and it worked. So there's sometimes we need to appreciate and humble ourselves, because we could learn so much from young people. It doesn't matter how small these children are. There's some things they say to you and you're thinking, because when my son said that to me, Mother, there's nothing wrong with me, I had to think, because he was right. I said to him, oh my goodness, I'm really sorry. You're right. There is nothing wrong with you. I said, you're right. And I felt so bad. I had to really keep on repeating. I said to him, I'm really sorry. I said, you know, you're right. There is nothing wrong with you, because there's nothing wrong with you. I said, you know, what you've done is not appropriate, but there's nothing wrong with you.
No, it's just a mistake, or it's just a bad moment, or you felt like you felt about it because you were having a difficult day or whatever, right? Like it. And I think this is the thing, like I am making mistakes again, grew up fearful, so fearful of making mistakes. And I often think to myself, I really wonder like exactly where that started to build. Like, I know that the act of getting things wrong, having it marked wrong, does have an impact on you worrying about getting a mistake. And so you want to make sure it's perfect before anybody else sees it, because you don't want anybody else to notice that you made a mistake. And I've had moments in my adult life, and I was saying to someone about this the other day in a coaching session, that I said, can you think of a single time in your life when making a mistake has had a catastrophic outcome? Like, that's worthy of the anxiety and stress and worry that you have day to day about making mistakes. And they're sat there for ages and they're like, I can't think of a single time when making a mistake has meant I've lost a job or I've had to end a relationship or whatever, right? Like, I can't think of a time when I've made a mistake like that. I mean, I can think of one where I accidentally didn't read a bit of small print on a work contract and I spent £8,000 for the company that I was working for. That was really stressful. It's a reasonably catastrophic outcome, but it was a mistake and it didn't leave me my job. It was a horrible conversation with my boss and a conversation with the head of Hilton Europe, and we figured it out. But it was fine. But it was one of those things, right? You kind of think, we get drilled into us that making mistakes is bad. Mm-hmm. So we build an anxiety around it that's completely unnatural. If we are worried about making mistakes, then we never try anything new, which is obviously a really common phrase. Like, we hear that, but we don't necessarily realize what that means. What it means is the fear of making mistakes means that we go out into the world not wanting to learn how to paint because we think the first painting we do is going to be a bit crap. It means that we don't try and go for a job that's a bit bigger and scarier than the one that we're doing now, because we think, no, actually, God, you know what? I'm in my mid-40s. I don't think I've got anything else left in me now. I don't want to push, like no. And I mean, this is what I basically, the main crux of why I love home education is because following a very child-led and a very natural, flowing, meandering, life is learning, learning is life kind of ethos, hopefully will mean that they don't have any set dates in their future. They don't have any grades to achieve. They don't have any tests to get right. They don't have to do their GCSEs when they're 16. They don't have to do their A-levels when they're 18. They don't have to do any of those things at any set times. There is no deadline. If they do some when they're in year 9, some when they're in year 11, want to take a break from doing exams and things and then decide to go on to do university when they're 25, cool. We have a whole life, but there's so much ahead of us. There's so much time, and we cram their education into this space and just say, if you haven't achieved everything that you want to achieve by the time you're 16, then you've got no hope. And frankly, I think even younger, we're telling children that they're probably not going to do that great. And actually, if we can have a better attitude of saying, actually, do you know what? Okay, we're not goal focused. We're not aiming for these exams. What we're aiming for is a lifelong learning inspiration, like that. Actually, learning is fun. It's curiosity. We're human. We love to learn. We love filling this with new knowledge. So actually, if you just encourage children to enjoy it by reducing pressure, you just take away the pressure as much as you possibly can of grades and tests and deadlines, they actually can just carry on learning something for as long as they want to learn it for. And sure, to some people, that thought of their kid not doing their GCSEs at 16, being able to join university at the same time as everybody their age, is terrifying. You want them to have that uniformity, that following along with society. But I just don't believe that it's true. I don't believe that a child who starts university at the age of 20 is at any disadvantage to one who starts at 18, maybe even more advantageous, slightly more mature, slightly more ready for the challenge, slightly more understanding what they want to do. Like, you know what I mean? I think we just have so many deadlines. There's so many things that just put them in place, and it makes them fearful of learning because they don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to, like, I didn't want to make the mistake of when I chose my university course. I chose to go and do wildlife conservation. That's what I wanted to do. I got my grades, I got in, and I turned it down because I was scared of spending 30 grand on an education that I didn't see a clear career outcome afterwards. And sitting here now, as I am now, I'm angry that my education felt like it only mattered. What I learned only mattered because of how much it would make me money-wise. And that I didn't allow myself, after 18 years or however many years you're actually in school, I suppose, sorry, 13 years of being in school, after 13 years of education, I didn't want to prioritize just learning about something I wanted to learn about. Because I felt like, no, the goal is now get a career. I've got no other choice. This is what's next. I need to make money. And as I say, my life has meandered through the jobs I've done and all the rest of it, and it's come to where it's gotten to, and I'm bloody proud of who I am today and what I am doing.
Fantastic.
But I think that I just hope, and as I say, I don't know, I just have to hope that this conviction, this determination, this ability to see through the systemic condition, just the things that we're just used to, that we think are just normal, and to question it at least. Hopefully, I just hope that I'm going to be able to give my kids some freedom that I just didn't have, and some understanding that knowledge is for knowledge's sake. Like, if you want to learn something, learn it. Doesn't have to have an outcome. Like, if you want to learn a bit of German, learn a bit of German. You don't have to become fluent. Like, we're just having fun. We're just doing what we do until we're bored of it and we move on. And yeah, it's just interesting, this constant goal setting and outcomes. Yeah,
it is fantastic, because you see, it's a situation where we have been so programmed and conditioned, do this time. If you don't follow that conventional line, as you rightly say, there is something wrong.
Yeah,
you won't
you're
achieve.
Behind, you're...
Exactly.
Yeah.
But who say? We've been so conditioned to think like that.
Yeah. And obviously the reason a lot of it is the case, I mean, obviously the government's only got so much money. Frankly, it hasn't got so much at all, really, anyway. We know this. And they can't have children having access to education that is just for fun and flexibility. They haven't got the money for that. They've got to make sure that children have a reasonably good grasp of fundamental core subjects that they believe are the most important, to allow them to go and get at least a low-level job. That's kind of the true, like, if you think what they've got the money to achieve is billions of children, and they've got to get them all to a standard that they have decided they're going to set. So obviously that pressure gets handed down to you guys as teachers, and obviously school boards and everything, and headmasters and mistresses. And you guys are under ridiculous pressure with very limited resources, and, as you say, a system that you guys are trying to fight back against. Like, you've got fantastic people like you in the system trying to do great teaching, and you're getting criticized for it.
Yeah, because we're meant to uphold the capitalist society, and if we're not, consumers maintaining the capitalist society, then there is an issue, because we're supposed to produce these children to be robots, to do as they're told, in order to fulfill the capitalist society. The minute they become critical thinkers, it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Because we have to really think about why that is, right? So what is it that we're worried about? Like, what is it that we're worried about children are going to do? And it's like, number one, the distribution of wealth. They will get richer. They will get more creative. They'll come up with great businesses. They'll free themselves from employed work, and they'll become more entrepreneurial. They'll do things for themselves. Right. Number one, they'll get richer. Number two, they'll get more educated. And like me and you, they'll start picking holes in stuff, calling it out for what it actually is, saying things that people go, oh, wait, hang on. When a child is removed from a school, that school loses funding for that child. We've had people genuinely criticizing the home education community for taking funding away from schools. And it's just like, okay, but a school, as a school, has a running cost. Like, that should just be standard, really, shouldn't it? Like, each school should get whatever they get. I'm not going to get into it because I don't know enough about it. But the point is that you're looking at situations where you're saying, okay, so as a home educator, I'm taking funding away from a school. We don't receive that funding. we can't ask for it. I don't want it because I don't want the oversight of the government in my home education journey anyway.
Exactly.
I know if they said to me, I'll give you £6,000 a year to home educate your children, but then you have to follow the national curriculum, the answer would be, yeah, no, thanks, I'm good. I'd rather go without. But the point is that it's really curious. It's just the idea that like that schools have obviously got the funding they're getting for these kids, and that money obviously doesn't even scrape the surface of the actual needs and requirements for those kids. And people are sat there saying the system is broken, my kids aren't coping, they can't sleep at night, they're getting bullied, I can't get them to go to school, they don't want to do their homework, they're bored of it, they're saying they're really bored all day. Like, not everybody, no, but there are people out there who have got genuine concerns, but the school's answer is get them back into school.
Mm-hmm.
If they're anxious and stressed and depressed and keep wanting to have time off and are refusing to go to school, then make home miserable so that they'll go to school. And they've got, like, if they're off sick for a couple of days because they've got a horrible like chest infection and stuff. A neighbour of mine recently decided that they weren't going to let their kids go out and trick or treat for Halloween because they'd been off sick. And it's just like, so we're basically like, as an adult, I know that for me, that perpetuated into me feeling like if I'd called in sick to work, that I couldn't live my life. That, yes, you're not feeling well enough to be sat at a desk in an office, but that means I'm not allowed to pop to the shops. What if someone saw me?
Exactly, isn't it?
Right?
That is so true.
It's like, what is that about? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I just feel like there's an awful lot of fear in it all that people would just kind of ignore and just allow to carry on because it's just the way it is. And it doesn't have to be. It's a default option. It's an option. Like, it doesn't have to be what you choose. There are other options. But much like people who take their kids out and put them into a private education, that's automatically considered as an upgrade, right? That they're being put into a really high, amazing academy. In some people's opinions, an upgrade anyway. Personally, I believe it can potentially have massive downsides for a child as well, in terms of pressure, potential parental resentment.
Yep.
All those kinds of things as well. But when people look at home education, it's automatically, you've got a number of different myths and ideas. You've got the idea that we're either pushy parents and we've got them sat at the dining room table by themselves doing maths from like 5 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night. And they're going to university at the age of 10, which sure does happen, but is not the fundamental core of home education. And then you've got the other end, which is that they think that we're raising feral, uneducated society hellraisers who are going to be really hard work, like conspiracy theorists and all the rest of it. And it's just like, you can't win. And so you are a bit stuck in that, and you have to obviously decide that you're A, you don't care, and B, that actually you know the facts and you know what your child is socialized and has manners and has the ability to read and whatever, like, you know yourself and you can have your own conviction. But the mythological idea of what home ed is means that people see it as a downgrade, a backup option, a fallback in case school doesn't work out. And that confuses me immensely. It's a tailored one-to-one education. And as long as you have the determination and the love and passion for your children's happiness and future, I don't see why it's ever considered a fallback. I don't get that. It's an absolutely entirely valid option, just like private school, just like normal school. It's equal and has its merits in many different ways. And I don't, that's a confusing one for me.
Thank you. I really totally agree with you there, actually. It goes back to the myth, the programming, and the conditioning.
Yeah.
And when we don't know enough about something, we become fearful of it. And that's the whole thing about it. Instead of we having the conversation about homeschooling, we're not having the conversation. No. Instead, we're just triggering fears because we don't know enough about it. Yeah. But yet still not asking.
So there's a great example that I explain to people sometimes. What's seen the movie Mean Girls? Think of it's basically, there's a lady called Katie who's comes back and goes into an American high school that she's been home educated in Africa, with her parents, and they come back into America, and she has to go to a normal secondary school, and she is portrayed as a maths geek, a weirdo, an outlier. She doesn't get on with everybody else. She doesn't know the social conventions. She doesn't and she accidentally falls in with the wrong crowd and behaves really badly and all the rest of it, right? And I grew up, so my impression of that movie as a teenager watching it at the time in a secondary school was that she was a weirdo, that she couldn't get on board with society, that she was different. As an adult watching it back, you see a well-adjusted, kind, befriends anyone, trusting, clever, like very intelligent, very well-rounded young girl going into an environment that essentially confuses the bejesus out of her and makes her start behaving really strangely because she doesn't know how to fit in, like she's trying to figure it out. And I think we just have to, like, that is one example. There's a number of obviously movies that do demonstrate home education, and so often they're just a child that's been isolated and kept home and not allowed to be out and about, and it's just, there's all these different things, and so it's not our fault. You say the conditioning's there, the messaging is there, and as I said to you earlier, I'm trying to find some of the cause, like where are these coming from, where are these threads coming from in our society that we believe the same things, because we get all the same questions from everybody who asks us questions about home education. We get the same questions, so it must mean that we've all got these beliefs have been drilled into us somehow. Where are they coming from? Like, what is the pattern here? Why are we actually believing this? Because this fear that comes into them means that they're obviously not considering it for their children, because they see it as a minority, a tiny portion of people doing it, something that only weirdos do, or people with terminally ill children or whatever, and it's just not true. And they're missing out on a choice. I mean, there's so many people get so upset when they have to send their kids to school in reception year. They don't want to yet, they're too young, they don't want to let them go yet, they've enjoyed having them home, they want to keep that closeness with their kids, they want to spend that time together, they want to learn together, but they don't see any other choices. They don't realize there's another choice. One of the most common questions I get asked is that legal?
Yeah.
Like, they genuinely think it's the law that their children go to school. And it's not.
It is so very true. And as we know, the national curriculum is not compulsory.
No.
Right? Every school teaches aspect of the national curriculum differently. The thing that all teaches maths, English, and science. But for the rest of the subject, every school some of them look at RE as being a compulsory subject. Some don't even teach it at all. So that alone telling you that if it was compulsory, it would be generic and everybody would be doing the same thing. But it's not. No. The only thing they're all doing the same is maths, English, and in some cases science. Not all of them even have science as being compulsory.
No.
So that in itself telling us that the national curriculum is not compulsory. However, they're drilling us that the national curriculum is compulsory. It's a myth. It's not. Just look at 10 schools and see how much of that so-called national curriculum they're actually teaching the same. The only thing you might find is maths and English. And guess what? Maths and English are taught from different examination boards. They're not even being taught from the same examination board. So what is that telling you?
That there's variety everywhere.
Exactly. That there's no standardization, because some school might use AQA for maths and English, some might use Edexcel for maths and English, some might use OCR for maths and English. There's 3 different boards already. So and it's being taught 3 different ways. There are 3 different
and not only that, like, not just 3 different ways, but every teacher has a different style. Every single classroom has got a different combination of students. Different backgrounds, different levels, different understandings. You've got different, obviously, I know that typically maths and English get split into like low level, mid level, upper level too, right? So you've got all these different splits and changes that there, as you say, there is no such thing as a standardized education. And this is obviously why people fight so hard to get their kids into what are considered to be fantastic Ofsted schools, like outstanding schools, which that in itself can mean nothing.
Thank you.
Because my mum, for example, worked in nurseries, and she said you'd get kind of like a warning vibe that Ofsted are going to be in your area, or they're going to be coming soon. And so she goes, and so like the whole nursery would be transformed. They do loads of stuff and get loads of paperwork done, and suddenly they'd all have this extra time to do their paperwork. And she goes, it's just a nonsense. She goes, it used to really make me angry that most of the time it was just like, oh well, we're doing, like, obviously being a fantastic nursery, being wonderful with the kids and everything, but things like the paperwork and stuff maybe wasn't being prioritized by management, etc., like it should be. But when Ofsted's due, suddenly everyone's like super sparkly, brand new uniform and all the rest of it. She goes, it's just nonsense. And she goes, it's, and some of the schools in my area, when I was looking at schools for my son, the most recent checked one that happened to be outstanding was 10 years previous.
Exactly.
Like 10 years. I'm just like, I'm sorry. That's completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like there's like, it wasn't relevant 6 months after that outstanding, let alone 10 years down the line. Exactly. Nonsense. Yeah.
So what is that saying to you? I keep on saying one of the things that some of the agencies seems to push in when they're looking for staff is, oh, this is an outstanding Ofsted school. I said, don't send me to them. I'm not interested, because you know what? It's unnecessary pressure. And all you seem to be seeing in the school are programming children to be robots.
Mm.
You know, because some schools seem to rate Ofsted. Really? It's not even what the paper is written on. You know, the beautiful thing about it is there's some schools now that are beginning to have light bulb moments and have taken out Ofsted off the paperwork, because they realize Ofsted does nothing than pressurize. They're not looking at reality.
No.
It's so many issues on that. Let me not start with Ofsted, because I could be here for the next 20 days. You know?
I mean, it's even stuff like things that feel really nondescript that can be school conditioning too, which are really fascinating as well. So it's things like the fact that we eat 3 meals a day. That comes from school conditioning, that's societal conditioning. It's like my children graze constantly. They eat all the time. They eat a complete variety of foods. I sit them down to a meal, 9 times out of 10 they'll eat half of it, won't really want to eat anymore, but they'll want to eat again 20 minutes later. For most, that'll be infuriating and makes you feel like, what are we doing here? But why does it matter? Like when you actually sit there and say, why does it matter? They're healthy, they're physically incredibly fit, very capable, like outgoing, happy children. They eat a complete variety of foods. They're faced with a bucket of Halloween sweets that they can eat whenever they want. I'm not going to control it. They can do what they want with it. Most of it's left. Like literally nearly 2 weeks later, most of it's still there. My son will go to it, rummage through it and go, actually, I'm hungry. I don't want sweets. Hang on, I might just have an apple, actually. Mummy, can I put some peanut butter in a bowl so I can have an apple? Like, we're talking children who completely understand their own bodies. They know what it needs and when. Whereas in school, again, children are expected to have breakfast before they go, because that's your breakfast window. If you don't eat it now, you're not going to have much of a chance to eat before lunchtime. I don't really know about snacking in younger years, like reception, year 1, etc., but I don't believe that there's a snack. There might be. I might be wrong in that. But then obviously they're sitting down for their lunch, and that's your lunchtime. Eat now, because you're not going to have a chance to eat again properly for the rest of the day. And they're coming home, and so often people are saying, oh, my kids are ravenous. But they're coming in at 3:30 are having practically a whole meal. And it's just like, children actually need to be eating little and often, or having much more access to food through their day, but we train them to eat at certain times. The school bell, for example, bells were invented for factories because it helped to, obviously, thousands upon thousands of workers. It was just easier to communicate that way. And as those bells were being developed, they were like, oh, do you know where else this would be really helpful? In schools. And so they started using them in schools, and people learned to not pay attention to the time, not understand their own rhythms, not notice how the day feels, not sense how long an hour's been, like not come to a natural conclusion when the teacher's finished her sentence, but to be called out somewhere by a bell. And we've gotten into that idea of being told what to do at certain times of the day. Now, as an adult, I can't remember to do a bloody thing without setting a timer. Like, it does my head in. And it's like, this is a simple stuff that we don't even notice is a problem. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I have ADHD too. So anybody with ADHD is going, no, it's because you're ADHD, woman. Like, I do get it. Like, there is two sides to it. But there's also just that fact that as adults, we do rely on timers, alarms, etc. quite a lot to make sure that we're not late, to make sure that we're keeping on track with our intentions. So there's loads of really what seem like really fine, really not big deal things that are going on in school systems that have an impact on us as people as we go off into the world. And it can massively affect how you choose to live your life, how fulfilling your life is, how much you enjoy learning, what you want to do next. And it's really sad, actually, that we've got all these kids that we're forcing through a system who some will thrive. I mean, I was one of the ones that if you looked at it on paper, I thrived. I got, I think, 12 and a half GCSEs in the end, like all between, I think, A star and B. Like, I did a great job, but chronically unhappy as an adult, bumbling from one job to the next, burning out over and over and over again, not really knowing what I want. It's taken until I was in my 30s for me to someone to sort of jumped out in front of me and made me go, oh, hang on, wait. brave women who actually are doing the work like we are, that actually kind of goes, wake up, everybody. And once you get woken up, you're just like, oh, I see. And then it's unraveled from there. But I can't even imagine what my life would look like right now if they hadn't done that and I was still stuck in the treadmill. It's terrifying, actually. I don't even want to think about it.
It's interesting, isn't it, how programmed we are, and we go along being programmed and conditioned until one day there's this aha moment thinking, hold on, I need to get off. What am I doing here? It's not working. But we've been so programmed to think that it works. Because there's an outcome, which someone else said that's the outcome that is needed, etc. It's just really, it's interesting. Thank you for that. The other question is, there's no need for me to ask you if you follow our curriculum, because it's very clear that it's a situation that allow the children to develop in their own time, their own speed, when, etc.
That's the thing. I mean, I keep one eye on what the maths and somewhat the English, but I feel like the English curriculum is written in a language that isn't English. Not entirely sure what half the words mean, which I know makes everyone like, the trolls out there will be like, oh yeah, so this is why you shouldn't educate your kids, because you don't even know what a prefrontal adverbial or whatever bloody hell they are is. I Google it. I have the ability to find out the information. But anyway, I keep one eye on it, just simply to give me ideas. So every now and then I'll have a little flick through and I'll just sort of tick off what he can do, what I know he's figured out, what he's doing. And I might do some little activities with him and things to see if he understands and if he knows, just to help give me ideas. And that's literally the only thing I really do that's formal, is to just recognize where he's at and to just see progress in whatever that looks like. And no, I'm not worried about him meeting the year 2 curriculum goals within year 2 or any of that. My intention is to see progress. And sure, if we reach the age of 11 and he's still struggling to add 2 and 2 together, then of course, obviously maybe not quite even that late, but I would be getting him support with that. But yeah, we don't follow a set curriculum day to day. We don't have a set routine day to day. We live our lives. It's as simple as that. We live our lives. We work, we play, we see friends, we go to clubs and groups and classes and swimming and football and we walk the dog and we go for a walk into town to the library and we feed the ducks and chat to people about their puppies and do all the things along the way, play with the autumn leaves, talk about the conkers. Like, we just live our friggin' lives. And I think someone said to me once who does follow, so I've got a friend of mine who does follow a very curriculum-based homeschooling. And she goes, but don't you find this exhausting? She goes, because we're walking through this forest and we were in this incredible sequoia forest that was all these massive, really, really tall trees and really straight pine trees. And I twigged before reading the plaque that this must have been planted as a forest to achieve timber for boats and things, because it's massive, great long trees that are perfect for making nice, smooth, flat planks out of. And I happened to be talking to her about it. I said, I wonder if that's the case. And we found this plaque and I was like, look, I'm right. And we had a chat about it and we learned a bit about the history of the forest and everything. And this woman said to me, she goes, oh my God. She goes, you're literally just telling them stuff all the time. You're having to think all the time about, like, to make everything relevant, to talk about what's going on around you and all the rest of it. And I went, do you not do that? Like, do you not find interest in and curiosity in the things you're looking at right now and actually have a conversation about it? She goes, not really, no. She goes, we've got our curriculum, we stick to that. Like, I know that I'm giving them a full curriculum of knowledge, that as long as I'm doing that, then I know that I've given them enough, that I'm doing enough. And she goes, you must be constantly feeling like you're not doing enough. And so therefore you've got to tell them more. And I went, no, I don't.
It's so, opposite, isn't it?
I said, I don't worry about whether or not I'm meeting a curriculum standards, or I'm making sure that we've, like, if I fell behind, for example, and we hadn't done it for a couple of weeks, I'd start to panic that I hadn't caught up and we hadn't done it all. And I'd much prefer to live my life, be in the experiences we're doing now. And yes, we are incredibly privileged. We live an interesting life. We've got friends. We go out and do things. Like, granted, we haven't got an awful lot of money these days. Time's obviously hard for everyone. So we're not paying to do things an awful lot, but we are going to places and we're seeing things and exploring and enjoying ourselves. And they are learning so much and curious about everything, because I'm curious about everything. And it just starts conversations. Like, the conversations we'll have are great. And it makes my life interesting. They're happy, they're interested. And we just follow the threads. We just go wherever it goes. And as I do, it's so natural. Like, for me, I guess it's just the way I am. I really enjoy that. And it makes sense for me. Whereas some people would feel more calm to follow a regimented curriculum, and both ways are fine. Like, it does whatever works for your family. If the kids are enjoying it and you're happy and it keeps everybody on a nice, even basis, and you're living your life that way and you're happy, that's great. For me, unschooling technically is, I guess, what it's called. We're probably not entirely like complete unschoolers, but yeah, very much child-led, follow our life is learning kind of attitude, which we just enjoy. People don't get it sometimes when they sort of say, but that must put so much pressure on you. I'm just like, no, it doesn't. Like, not once you fully embrace it and you just let it be, because they show you that they're learning. As I said to you before, we were talking about the fact that his reading is coming on great. Like, he has actively wanted to learn how to read. Like, he loves maths. He's always seeing things, maths in things, and asking great questions. So you just follow their lead. And the more you do it, the more you realize that they're doing it by themselves. And you're just there to facilitate and inspire and to pop things in their paths. If you can see they're struggling with something, then you help them a little bit or whatever. Yeah.
I really like that. Yes, the emphasis on child-centered, child-led, and the emphasis on there's no curriculum, because every experience is a curriculum.
It is.
And I don't think we realize that. Every experience we have is a curriculum.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be so formal and restrictive?
And I mean, in schools as well, like school-based system, you segregate subjects. So like cooking becomes cooking, and design and technology becomes something else, and maths becomes something else, and English becomes something else. But actually, when you look at cooking, you have history, geography, reading, maths, chemistry, biology, geography. I think I said one or not. English. You're literally looking at every subject that can come under cooking alone.
Yeah.
And so actually, because we segregate them, you're wasting time, right? Like you're using a maths class to teach about weights and measurements, and in cooking you're doing weights and measurements because you're doing it. And it's just like, so why are we bothering? Like, why are we separating them out? Why are we not using subjects like cooking to bring relevant practical skills and the maths, reading, science, etc., and allowing them to blend more, spending longer in those subjects, covering the bits of the curriculum that need to be covered in a practical way? Why are we not using that? Like, why is that not being done? It's such a simple solution. Like, it cut back on so many different things, like the time that you're going to spend doing certain subjects in formal sit-down worksheet situations. Like, just use it elsewhere. It's just feels like common sense to me, and I'm confused as to why we think that it's got to be segregated and separated out like that to show them this is maths. And it's just like, well, no, but they know it's maths, it's numbers. It's not difficult to see that it's maths. It's just fine. Like, yeah, fascinating.
It is so very true. Thank you for that. That's what I keep on saying to people all the time. You don't have to segregate the subject, because guess what? If the children are learning maths through cooking, learning maths through any other subject, guess what? We'll have children loving maths. Right now, we're teaching it so prescriptively that they hate it. Up to yesterday, one student was saying to me, we are talking about, they needed maths for psychology, but they didn't get the maths, so they didn't get psychology, go to psychology. And they're saying how much they hate maths. And I said, stop, don't hate it. I said, because everything around you is maths. I said, you were just taught wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because if you taught, when you see maths embedded in everything you do, you're going to start loving maths, because you see that you're going for a walk and there is maths right down there in front of you. You go shopping and there's maths everywhere in the supermarket.
Yeah. And that it is actually fun. Like, or it does actually have relevance even to them. So, like, for example, I was saying to my son, it's as simple as, like, when you say to me, you've got £5 pocket money that you can spend whilst we're in the supermarket, you can choose some things that you want to have in the fridge that's for you. And he gets to say, for example, the petit filou, and he's looking at his options, and he wants the ones that are in the little strawberry shaped pouches. And I say, okay, hold on that thought. Look at how much it is per 100 mils. And so he looked at it and I said, okay, now look at these pots over here, much bigger pots, much more yogurt. Price, look at the price. Okay, so look how it is per 100 mils. And for him to go, oh, I see. So these little ones that look like a strawberry, I get, I don't know, like a quarter of what I get in this one. And he quite literally did the maths himself. He could get the relevance, and he found himself thinking, well, wait, hang on. So my money can go further. I can get more yogurt. Yes. So that is, and people might say, well, that's not relevant to a 5 or 6 year old. And it's like, yes, it is actually.
Yep.
Like, it is, because that for them does plant a seed of understanding. And next time we're in the shop and we're looking for something, he's actively going and having a little look and being like, Mummy, I think these ones are cheaper. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. Congratulations. Good job.
Yeah.
Like, that is a life skill, number one, for budgeting and actually understanding things, not getting drawn into the consumerism of what a fancy piece of packaging might look like, for another example.
Yes.
But it's also, yeah, it's relevance. And so when I always talk about in home ed, you've got relevance building, but also I call it home ed stacking. It's like habit stacking, same idea, where you are just combining. So they are like, I don't know, for example, like really, really enjoying learning about sharks. And I just cleverly use sharks. I was like, come sit on my desk with me. Why don't we make our own shark book? Oh, yeah, that would be really cool. We're Googling, we're reading, we're grabbing statistics, we're learning about the different lengths and the different amounts of teeth and all of it, right? And you're printing stuff off, and you're using Canva, and you're using Google, and you're using Word, and you're like using scissors, and you're writing, and you're sticking stuff down, like all of the skills. It's like all of it rolled into a little project. And they had absolutely no idea that they're doing anything but fun.
Fun, exactly, isn't it? Yeah.
And this is, and I know that that's impossible to achieve when you've got 30 kids and they all have their different interests, and you can't achieve that level of individuality very easily. like obviously you will get some kids in a class who'll be like, oh yeah, I love learning about dinosaurs, great. So you are going to get that with some of them will be really on board with it and they'll enjoy it. And it's fine. Like, I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but these are moments, if we can just stack things, bring loads of skills together into one activity, and it also holds their attention for longer, because if you're just doing writing or if you're just doing reading, then they're not going to stay with it for a very long. They're going to get bored and restless and want to do something else. But lots of little tiny moments of different skills, it keeps them there, it keeps them focused.
It is so fascinating, because that is so very true. Yeah. But I'm afraid that because, as I said, because of programming and conditioning, we think that, oh no, they're not going to get all the skills necessary. So we're so afraid that we're not even taking chances. We're afraid to make mistakes. The same thing we're talking about earlier on, in terms of mistakes is seen as a big thing. And that's something I keep on saying to teachers. You need to allow students to make the mistake, because what mistake does is it show them an alternative to the same thing that we're looking at. So it's like, we going down to the train station, guess what? We passing different routes, or someone got lost but still end up in the train station. That doesn't mean there was something wrong. It's an alternative. And we need to reinforce that mistakes are alternative, not a disaster.
Also, that using that example, that idea of getting to the train station, that we can have this idea that the goal is not just to get to the train station. Someone said, so right, so the goal is to get to the train station. For some people, that'll be, we need to get to the train station as quickly as possible, as directly as possible, not pass and go, not looking and stopping to smell those pretty flowers over there. We're getting to the train station. That's the goal. We're going. Their blinkers are on. They're not seeing all the beauty. They're not seeing all the chances and the opportunities along their way, because the only thing they've been told to do is to get to that train station. What we want and what we need are people who go, you want me to go to the train station? Why is that? Well, because we're taking a train at this time to get to this place, because we're doing that. Okay, but why are we doing that? It's like, because we need to earn some money. We need to get this done. Okay, but I've noticed there's a little shop that's on my way to the train station that they need someone to come and help them with their social media, or they need someone like whatever, right? And I could do that job, and then that gives me plenty of time to maybe go and do this little job over here as well, actually. Or like, and actually I love doing this, and I really love spending time in my garden. But if I'm just literally just racing to this train station to get to this place, to get to this job every day, then I'm not going to have time to go and do this that's really fun. And I never see my kids, and I get home from work so late every night, like you've got all these different avenues, and because we get kind of teach our kids to just, this is the goal, we're getting from A to B, do your school, get your grades, get your GCSEs, get out there, go and get your A-levels, get out there, go get your degree, get out there, go get a job, go get your house, go get your partner, whatever, settle down, have your kids. And like I said to you earlier, I got to that point and I was like, God, then what's next? And they're like, what? I don't know, what now? Well, you're supposed to have a career and have kids and keep all of the stuff that you just worked really hard to try and get and not lose your mind. Oh, I see. I see, that sounds great. No, that's awful. What the hell have I done? And now I'm obviously having to work really hard to backtrack and go, wait, hang on. What was it that I wanted to do? What were all these lovely little side channels that I didn't take that I wish I had now, or I wish I could go back and have a closer look at, because I was so focused on what the next goal is. This is the thing, like I can remember judging a surfer guy that was on holiday somewhere, and he was serving us drinks in this bar, and I was chatting to him about his life, and he was like, oh yeah, I literally just travel, I just go to the best countries that have got the best waves at the best time of year, and I just work there in bars and stuff. So I've got pretty much a bar in every continent, and I just travel wherever I go, and I just enjoy the waves. I'm just like, what a bum. Like, he's got no money, he's got no family, he's got no house. Like, I was just like, and now I look back at it and just like, he had it right. He knew what he was doing. Like, he's living a damn life. Like, he's living a life. And it's, I just think it's, I just really hope that my choice to home educate my kids and to demonstrate to them, hopefully, as I start to unravel and do more, and to take the scenic route, and to think about it, slow down, actually find what makes me happy and makes my life feel good, that they won't, like, I don't mind them wanting to be excellent. I don't mind them obviously wanting to be academic, to maybe want to be a doctor or a lawyer, or if that's the channel they go down. I honestly don't see it, but my son might really want to be a paleontologist right now.
Okay.
And a police officer and a farmer.
Okay.
If you ask him at the moment what he wants to be when he grows up, he says he wants to have lots of babies. It's like, okay, it's random, but it's fine. He wants me to have another baby, so that's he's getting annoyed with me. He just wants me to have more babies. The answer is no. I love him very much, but no. So yeah, so he's got really interesting and diverse ideas, and there was a moment when he said to me, "Mummy, it's too hard." And I was like, "What is?" And he goes, "I need to choose one of these. Like, I can't be everything. Like, you need to choose one for me. Tell me what I'm going to be when I grow up. I just need someone to tell me." And I was like, "Absolutely not. Like, you are 5 years old." I was like, "Thomas, you can be a police officer for a bit, and then you can stop and you can go and be a paleontologist for a bit. Or maybe you can be a paleontologist whilst you're a police officer and you're just really passionate about it and you do it on the side." I said, "Maybe you'll also go and do these amazing expeditions and be someone who climbs mountains to look at the geology and really find cool fossils." I don't know, kid. Like, but please don't pick a thing. Do not pick a thing. Like, nobody should pick a thing. Like, just follow your nose. Yeah. Just wherever you go, just follow it. Just do whatever's there. Just experience the life that you're in that moment and just move from one thing to the next. And that's not lacking ambition. Like, that's not wanting amazing life, not wanting to have all the things. Like, if he still decides he wants to marry and have a home and like to be a home educating dad and to run his own business from home and to just live a pretty normal, relaxed, standard life, cool. Like, if that makes him happy, if he's chilled and he enjoys that, then great. Personally, I don't see him being happy that way. I think I can see him being much more adventurous than that and exploring as well. But it's up to him. It's entirely his choice. And I'm just here to respect it and watch it happen and help him and facilitate his goals. So whatever he decides he wants to do. And I really do not see a child that lacks ambition in a child that hasn't been forced to have it. I see a child that's full of it and super passionate and super interested in so many different things, all by himself. And we just don't give kids enough credit to do that by themselves. We just don't think they will because we didn't want to, because we were in an institutional school situation where we felt we had to and it was boring.
Yeah, exactly. And we just,
you just can't imagine it.
Exactly. And what you also did was you just follow what you were told. We thought even stepping outside of the box.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole thing. It's like,
you don't want to get into trouble, do you? You want to be liked, you want to be accepted by your peers, you want to be accepted by the grown-ups in your life. You don't want to be in trouble all the time. So of course you grow up thinking you've got to be a certain way and behave a certain way. Of course you do. You haven't really got a choice if you're not being given any other examples.
That is so very, thank you very much. That is so very true. It's like following because of fear, following because you don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Wow. It's listening to you is so powerful, because it's like you just unraveling things and just exposing.
Yeah, it's what I do.
Yeah, which is so wonderful. It's like
I'm very passionate about things. Yeah,
there's not just one answer. You know, who said we have to be doing it this way? You know,
there's so many choices, and I mean, it's just, as I say, I guess it's just one of those things where we're taught to want certain things, and that wanting those things is what makes you happy, like having the money in the bank or having the house or having the partner or whatever, that you're kind of told that that's what makes happiness, and therefore we're chasing happiness all the time. But actually, happiness is not a goal. Like, it's not tangible. It's not a thing. It's an emotion, one of thousands that we experience all the time. I am not happy all the time, but I am content, because that is my life. I've chosen things. Like there's a lot that I'm very content about. There are still some things that I'm not so content about. And there are things that I'm still trying to shift and change and trying to undo. And I can't, like, for example, we have a house, we have a mortgage expectation, we have an income expectation. These are all things that, honestly, if I had it my way and my poor husband, I would sell it all, every last bit. And I would just go and just see what we find. I really, really, really want to do that. And he's just like, we can't sell the house.
Exactly.
Like, come on, you've got to be sensible. Like, we're never going to be able to buy a house again. If we sell it now, we'll never buy one again. I went, so what? So what? Like, what if we don't? Who cares? We're not going to end up homeless. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Like it's so funny how it's again a very much a privileged position to be in, but it's just one of those things where I do find myself thinking, you know, it's we're taught to tie ourselves down, to anchor ourselves to certain things, to keep up with the Joneses, to show people that we're smart and that we're wealthy and that we're whatever. And I'm not saying that those things don't give us privileges and benefits in this world. Like, I'm not saying that to walk into a room and say that I don't know, that people do see people differently, that is the unfortunate truth of it, because of all the conditioning and the societal structure we live in, that people do judge and they do compare and they do have those issues. But not everybody does. Not every community does. There are pockets of communities. The home education community typically is one of them. I haven't come across very many people in the home ed community who are judgmental or unkind. There is a lot more freedom, inclusivity, awareness of different situations, disabilities, race, everything. We're a much more open-minded group of people, typically. And as I say, this is just being very generalized, but that, I think, is born from the fact that we're all kind of just seeing through a lot of the societal injustice and just seeing that actually their authenticity and the ability to be ourselves should be the most valuable thing. And frankly, when we look at people who are very individual, who are very themselves, don't we honor them? Like, don't we literally look at them and think, oh, they're so amazing, or like how talented they are, or how confident they are? And like, as I say, people look at it and they think, oh, like, really wish I could be more like them. And they can be. It's a choice. Like, you can choose to be. It's just a bit scary. It's just a bit of a leap. You just got to be able to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, which isn't actually very comfortable in the first place.
Exactly.
And just be different. You just got to allow it to happen. Find your people. But it's that is a scary step. It's a really scary step.
Thank you so very much. It's interesting, as you say, step out and find your people. Powerful. Thank you. What 3 tips could you give someone who is thinking of home educating their children but is scared to do it?
I think if someone's on the fence and they're feeling the fear and obviously potentially getting the criticism and whatever else around them, is first and foremost, a bit like what I said earlier, is to hold on to the spark. To just, if you have got that little glimmer in you that's saying, this is an option for me, I want to do it, like, that's probably tip number 2. I want to is a reason enough. It really is. Like, it really, really is. I want to is reason enough. That's the spark. That's the thing. It's that you don't need any other excuses, any other reasons. It's not a backup. It's not a fallback plan. It's not something which is a bad thing. It does not put your children at any detriment whatsoever. Like, seriously, it's totally valid. It's a totally available and accessible form of education. And there's thousands of us, so you will find your people. And then I think tip number 3 is to just get out there and start meeting some people in the home ed community. Just take that step, even before you actually decide to home ed. Even if you're going to meetups without your kids, like going meet up with the local home ed communities that are in your area. Mostly on Facebook, you'll find groups typically for your county, for your town, even if you're lucky enough, depending on how big your town is. And just get out and meet people. Go to playgrounds during the day, during school term time. and spot the home ed kids. They're everywhere. And just go and chat to people who've got clearly school age kids and ask them if they home educate, and chances they'll say, yes, I am. And just say, I'm thinking about doing it. Can I talk to you about it for a minute? We won't mind, as long as you're approaching us with a curious tone and non-judgmental. Then most of us are very happy to explain and to give you this reassurance and to spend this time. Like I literally spent this morning, and the new lady turned up to our co-op that I run on a Friday morning, and she's got a 4-year-old who's literally not quite school age but isn't going to go to school, and she's terrified because she didn't even know this was a thing until recently and has realized it's going to be the right choice for her autistic daughter, and she needed some reassurance. And I was really, really happy to spend that time reassuring her and to giving her that, helping to pass on my conviction and my passion for it. Because at the end of the day, it is a different approach, and it's a very trusting approach. And I was lucky enough to do it from the very beginning. So my kids haven't got any school trauma. They haven't got any hang-ups. We've not got any resistance to learning. There are definitely complications that come from like deregistering and starting that way. To get into another time. But the point is that I guess that's kind of it really. It's just find some people, just go and find some people, just talk to them, if it's online, in person, whatever, and to just know that I want to is reason enough. And that yes, you might be struggling to find statistics and things to reassure you right now, but once you've done it for a year or so, you won't need them. You'll see it. So you just need to get in and try. Just try it and see what happens. And you can absolutely always put them back into school later. It's like it's no choices ever and forever. You can always choose to do things differently. Like there's no reason why you won't be able to put them back in school later. So it's up to you. Just try something new, just try it and just give it a chance and just trust it, give it a chance.
Yeah, the word is trust. Yeah. Because the thing is, you de-register your child, you could actually put your child back in school. The schools would be happy to take your child because guess what? It's some money for them. Thank you so very much, Kelly. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad.
The way your outlook in terms of homeschooling, the child just learn at the pace, is child-centered, there's no pressure, I just think that if you're going to home, that's my view here, if you're going to homeschool your child, you do not need to follow the curriculum from which you are taking the child from.
No.
Because you are taking the child out of the school because it's a lot of time is mainly the competition, the comparison, the curriculum. So why would you force the same curriculum you're running from to going into it? It doesn't make sense.
And I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the curriculum can be there as a guide if it helps to reassure you, but it isn't the be all end all. It isn't all there is to learn in this world. It can't possibly be. Like there's a million things to learn. And the more we allow the child to find the things that matter to them, they will read because they want to read a book about that thing. They will do the maths because they want to learn how to do something about that thing. They'll they'll build stuff because they're interested in building cars now because they've been learning about cars. Like they'll do things in their own time when it makes sense to them, when it's made relevant, and you can help them to figure out why it's relevant sometimes. And you can absolutely inspire, but the national curriculum is just an option, and as you explained very well earlier, that it isn't even standardized anyway. So as much as you might think that they're going to be falling behind, or they're not going to be, like if they had to go to school say in year 3 and they haven't been to school yet, that if you haven't been doing conventional curriculum stuff that they might be behind. I promise you now, children in year 3 are still sometimes going to be working at reception level, or haven't done anything, or are having a really hard time. Like you're not going to get kids, like everybody who's going to be exactly the same at that point. They're not going to be going in and suddenly being the outcast who doesn't know anything. Like chances are they'll be absolutely fine, because they'll have that confidence in their own learning that they can take on whatever challenges come their way. And I mean, I often say to mine that obviously I choose to home educate them, that we're in a privileged position to be able to do so, and that obviously like I said, I'm not going to ever talk to you about school being a bad thing, because I don't know what your future holds, and I don't know if one day you might need to go to a school like that. That could happen, and I don't want them terrified of it. I don't want them thinking it's a bad thing. But through no effort of mine whatsoever, but just them watching TV programs, talking to friends who go to school, whatever, they have developed an idea of it, and their comparison is that they wouldn't want to go. And that's really hard to think, gosh, it must be really tricky for friends who do go to school when they're talking to him and whatever he's saying about his life, that I often feel bad about that. Like, I feel bad that it's like a tease almost sometimes, because he's like talking about like going to Legoland and God knows where. What else? I'm just like, Thomas, just like take it easy. This is like, just like, rub it in. But it's, as I say, it sounds really like, sorry, I really feel like I'm standing really up myself, but it's one of those things where I feel like he really would not choose to go. Like, if he was given the choice, he has been told he always has the choice. If he really wanted to go, he was adamant about it, then I would let him go. But I decided that for reception age that he was too young to make that decision, and that I wanted to give him a chance at doing something different. And I honestly don't see that he would ever change that now. And as I say, I just have to hope that he does lead a great life that he is happy with, and that he can see that he has all the potential and opportunities to do whatever he chooses to do, and that he will be able to pick things up at the age of 17, at the age of 25, at the age of 50, and do something cool and interesting with it if he wants to. And if he can accredit some of that down to the fact that he was home educated, then I'm happy. That's all I want. I just want him to actually have a life that he feels he can always do what he wants to do, and that nothing is stopping him. There is no limits. He's allowed to do whatever he wants. Yeah, if I can do that, I'll be a very happy woman. But I'll say, the proof is in the pudding, as I say.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing is you are empowering him and giving him the autonomy to do what he wants to do, and reminding him that there are no limitations.
No.
That's one of the beautiful things, the reminding there's no limitation.
Yeah.
Thank you so very, very much. Have you got anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to the audience?
That's it, I think. Really? No, yeah. It's been really lovely. Thank you for inviting me on, Debbie. And as I say, I really love working with parents on building this conviction. So do feel free to hunt me out and come and find me.
It's fantastic. If you have any other home educators who want to come and share their journey, because every journey is different, and every purpose of the journey is different. So it's so wonderful when people come and share their journey. You know,
it's helpful to see it, isn't it? To hear other people's testimony.
Exactly. The challenges and the triumphs. Because there are, you know, although, you know, we all know that they're far more triumph than the challenges, you know.
I think so, ultimately, for sure.
I do.
Parenting is challenging, but it's
rewarding.
Yeah, it's so rewarding, because you get to, like, again, as a home educator, you get to witness everything too. You get to witness all of those little magical light bulb moments when they figure stuff out as well. Like, there's none of that, what did you do today? I don't know.
Can't remember.
We don't get that. We know, we've seen it.
Exactly. That's the beautiful thing.
It's very rewarding. It means you don't just get the crap bits. I always say to people as well, like, sometimes obviously you can end up just getting the crap bits and trying to get them fed and into bed and racing from club to club and trying to keep your life done and your housework done and everything else. Like, the way that we have formatted our life, and I still work and I still take time with them and I still have to do housework, I still have to do all those things, but they get to be blended somehow.
Exactly, isn't it? That's the beauty, isn't it? The fact that you're able to blend it all, and you know, everybody's enjoying it. That's the most powerful thing, the enjoyment that stems from it.
Yeah, we don't wake up stressed. We don't wake up like having to rush and to do things. We just get to live our life. We just get to wake up and take care of ourselves and do what we need to do, and just the learning just happens along the way. And I'm not saying it's never purposeful, like it is purposeful a lot of the time, but it's all done with just, they don't even realize what we're doing a lot of the time. They're just enjoying themselves and we're just doing interesting stuff, and that's they just see life as just being a constant stream of interesting conversations and tasks and like places and people. They don't see anything as learning because it's just life. That is what their life looks like. There's set school days, there's no set anything. It just happens all the time.
Yeah. You see, this is also reinforcing to all of us, learning is everywhere.
Yes.
You don't have to be in a school building to learn. Every which way there's learning, and a matter of appreciating it and identifying the connection. That's what's so beautiful about the whole thing.
Yeah, it really is. It's so important as well to help the knowledge actually sink in.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Kelly. If you have anybody who would love to come to share their journey with us, we'll appreciate it. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, my Facebook people. My brains just went just now. Right. I'll see you guys tomorrow when I'll have a female educator on the program talking about her journey before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, what education is like. Is it business as usual when they came from a pandemic? We know it was. They forget about the mental health of the children who have not been socializing for a year or so. And they just say business as usual. And they're wondering why we now have a high explosion of mental health issue among the young people. These are the reasons. Anyway, guys, take care, stay blessed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good evening, good night where you are. Take care. Bye-bye.